last video, you saw me cut out this template. I'm going to start out this video by making my countertop. And here is my big block of butcher block that I'm going to cut my template out of. And I'll have some left over for some other projects. So I lined up with a straight edge, and all my other edges are pretty much scribed, so I'm going to have to cut it out with a jigsaw. It's kind of weird, cutting with the grain is a lot harder than cutting across the grain. The blade started smoking. Let's go test out this cut before I cut anything else. Cut it, test fitted it. It was a little tight in some areas, so I just sanded it down. I already cut my little notch right here. I'm going to cut out my sink hole to make this lighter, so I can then take this to my little bench top sander and get this corner nice and straight and rounded the way I wanted it. So to cut out the sinkhole, all I'm going to do, drill out a couple little holes so I can get my jigsaw in there, and then do the same thing. Just cutting it out. Nice. All right, I'm going to go over it with a real quick 220 sanding. I'm going to do all the edges and the whole top and this side. I haven't done that little bit yet. I'm going to do that on my edge sander, and that'll be the last thing I do before I put it in. Pretty nice. So now I got all my edges shaped, squared off the way I need them. They're really sharp, so I'm going to put a chamfer on them. And I'm going to do something like this, just a 45 chamfer, just like that, just to knock that edge down so it's not as sharp. And that's the same chamfer I put on all my walnut pieces, so I'm going to just kind of match the edges everywhere in the van, so I'm going to do that everywhere else. And that's what that looks like. It's hard to tell, it all kind of blends in the phone, but real clean, real nice. I'm going to do the same on the bottom side. All right, I'm going to do one more pass of sanding with the 220 grit sandpaper, and then I'll be ready to install. But before I install it, I'm going to put some polyurethane on all my walnut that I did not polyurethane yet. So I got to do all that before I put this in. Well, here's me putting on that polyurethane. The clip of me putting in the butcher block kind of disappeared somehow, so I didn't get that filmed, but it went in without a hitch. Very easy. And coming out of this little hole in the back that I jigsawed out, I got all my little wires and everything that I need to put on a control panel. So I got my battery monitoring system. I just had my AC running, so that's why the battery looks a little low right there. I got my inverter power. I've got my heater, which this control will actually turn on by an on switch right here because I don't want that power to constantly be on my heater control. So I just have a little on-off switch just to turn on the remote. And then I'm going to have an outlet with some USBs in here. And then just a little places for some remotes that I got. My air conditioning remote and my vent remote. And then also the on-off switch, maybe on the outside for the sink. And I am sure you noticed this gap that I'm disappointed about that happened with my butcher block. I think my saw blade was a little tilted, so the bottom touches and the bottom is perfectly scribed, but the top, the part you see, has a little gap. But it's going to be fine because I'm just going to put a little piece of walnut trim right there to cover that up. But I'll do that after I build this control unit, so it'll have something to butt up to instead of me scribing that around the trim piece. So always do your trim pieces, same over there, do those last. And what I want to do now is, getting all those remotes out of the way, is put my finish on my butcher block. I think that turned out awesome. That looks great. See the lightness in that acacia matches the floor really well. I wish that panel was a little bit darker to get the dark spots of the acacia to pull everything together, but I think it still looks really good in there. All right, up next, let's go ahead and put on my doors.